Welcome to Run With It, a show on running, fitness, and nutrition. On today's show, we have a report on the St. Paddy's 5K run, an interview with Ashley Charlebois with Fortia Sport and Health, and powered by Chocolate Milk Ambassador. We also have a report on the Harry Jerome Track Classic with Dr. Doug and Diane Clement. And we have a conversation with Terry Lynn Williams-Davidson, an avid runner, lawyer, and accomplished musician. Later in the show, we will be giving away a copy of our latest CD, so stay tuned for that. Fueling your body is so important to maintain energy, training, and overall health. I recently spoke with registered dietitian and powered by Chocolate Milk Ambassador Ashley Charlebois. Welcome to the show, Ashley.
Thanks, Christine.
So what are some tips and advice for proper fueling your body for runners?
Well, one thing to remember is not just what to eat right before, during, and after a run, but to make sure you're fueling well throughout the day. So ideally, you want to have meals and snacks every 2 to 3 hours to keep up with your energy and nutrition needs, and trying to have foods that are high in carbs with a small amount or moderate amount of protein and healthy fats as well. So keeping in mind that carbs are not bad as long as we eat the right types of carbs, like the complex carbs, and the right portion sizes.
So what are some best food choices that a runner can make while training for a marathon or fun runs?
For training, you do want to keep in mind, again, so foods that are high in carbs with a moderate to small amount of protein and healthy fats. And a good way to remember that is actually what I think of the plate rule. So you want to represent half your plate with vegetables or fruits, a quarter with whole grains if you can, and a quarter with some type of protein with a side of a dairy product if you'd like. So what you want to eat before a run, for example, kind of depends on how long you have to eat it before you start. So ideally you want to eat, if you can, about 2 to 3 hours before, following that plate rule, and then maybe top off about 30 to 60 minutes in advance to kind of top off those energy stores. So that could be something like a banana and peanut butter, or just something really small during that time. And it's also important to make sure that you're eating well after your training as well. So our bodies have this 30-minute window where we can actually absorb food energy at the fastest rate to store it back into our muscles for the next workout, basically. So for that time, so during that 30-minute period right after we finish running, it is important to get something high in carbs with a small amount of protein, and that's where something like chocolate milk, for example, would actually be a really great recovery option. Another option could be like a fruit and yogurt smoothie, or a piece of toast and an egg and maybe a fruit on the side. Yeah.
That's great. Is there new scientific research on preferred foods such as chocolate milk?
Yeah, actually. So the reason that chocolate milk is kind of a pick for a lot of trainers right now, people who are training for marathons and runs and all sorts of different sports, is because it has an ideal combination of carbohydrates and protein, as well as it helps to rehydrate us right after a workout and kind of provide some electrolytes that we lose through sweat while we're running. So chocolate milk is easy. If you have a cup to 2 cups of chocolate milk right after a run, it's really nice to recover and kind of tide you over for the next hour until you can then, an hour or 2 later, have a meal following that plate rule again. So that the next time you run or the next time you train, you do have just as much energy as that day that you just finished.
I love chocolate milk, by the way, too.
It also is delicious.
Thank you for joining us, Ashley. For more information, you can go to their website at www.poweredbychocolatemilk.com, or follow them on Twitter at PBC Chocolate Milk. Stanley Park was a sea of green at the annual St. Paddy's Run, and the damp weather could not dampen the spirits of the runners both before or after the event.
Well, I kind of do everything. I was out here at 3 o'clock in the morning throwing tables out, whatever, but officially I guess I am the race director. The race started about 9 years ago, and it was just a group of friends, and we decided to come in here and raise money for the Canadian Diabetes Association. My mom was diabetic at the time, and I thought, hey, I know running, so I can just raise some money for the Canadian Diabetes Association through a fun run. So there was about 150 of us got together, and we sat in a little pub at the Brockton Pavilion and had some beers afterwards and had a great time. We said, why don't we do it next year? So, and then it just started really growing. We've got a field of over 2,000 today. everything from the elite athletes up front, which definitely today smashed some course records. I mean, those are Olympians that are running right now, all the way back to, of course, all the guys dressed in skirts and green wigs. So yes, and we love them all, right?
So how is this race different from other runs?
Well, I mean, what we try and do is we're trying to do both sides. We want to make sure these guys are happy. Thank you. We want to make sure these guys are happy and enjoying themselves, but I also still want the guys to have a good run out there. And we're trying to get people active. A lot of the Learn to Run clinics that are run through the running room, they run right up to this. So most of these people are actually doing their first ever 5K race. So that's why I was at the finish line, giving the high fives and stuff, because some of them, this is a big, big deal for them. I mean, when they run out and walk around a 5K, it's a long way. It's tough on the roads. We threw some hills at them, but they all ran really, really well. And, so it's not just about the 14-minute guy that won out front, although he's amazing. It's all the other people that really matter to us quite a bit. So, and they don't know it, but they are here. And like last year, we raised $22,000, and we're probably going to surpass that this year. So even though they're just dressed in green, having fun, having a beer, they're actually doing a really, really good thing. And to me, that's that triple win we look for.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Terry Lynn Williams Davidson is very complex. Practicing lawyer, accomplished musician, and running helps her maintain her energy and focus for both of these very demanding occupations. During our conversation, we shared how running helps maintain a balance in her life. Terry Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So what inspired you to start running?
About 3.5 years ago, I had a back injury gardening, and it took me a while to sort through what had happened, and I realized that I hadn't been active for over 20 years without exercising. And I really liked to run, so I decided that I would go back to running. It was something that I did in high school.
So what is your favorite distance? Or is there a favorite distance?
Well, there is now. It would have changed before I ran a marathon, but after the marathon I find that I really enjoy the half marathon. It's enough of a challenge, but not such a long distance that it really, of course with the marathon there's so many hours of training, and I found that hard to manage with my schedule. So I really enjoy the half marathon.
And so what is your training like these days for you?
I ran the Totem to Totem Marathon in Haida Gwaii last August, and then I took a bit of time off, and I've started a strength training program, and which has a little bit of intervals for after the workout. So I haven't been running a lot, and I'm gearing up to do a 10K, the Vancouver Sun Run, and then a sprint triathlon later this year.
That's awesome. So those are your running goals
for this year.
And so how has running helped you with your musical career and being a successful lawyer?
Well, before I started exercising, I felt like I was just ahead walking through life. I totally lived in my mind in the practice of law. And after I started exercising, it helped me, after I started running, it really helped me to calm my mind and to go into a space where I didn't worry about my clients' problems, or I didn't worry about how I was going to balance the day, all of that kind of stuff that I normally do. And it brought me into a different place. And so it really helps me in my law career I don't think about what the worry is, but I'll start running and I just listening to the sound of my breath and running and being out in nature, it really calms me. And then all of a sudden a solution will pop into a problem that I've been working throughout the day that I couldn't find the solution to, and it will just come out of the zone, I guess.
Yes.
The zone of just going into a different space that I normally live in. But one of the reasons I chose running in the first place is when I hurt my back, I also was starting voice lessons because I knew I wanted to release a CD on my own. And as I worked through the voice lessons, I realized that my core was totally, my voice instructor told me in a very nice way, not in these words, but that I was totally out of shape. So I started back into running and started now into strength training just to build up my core so that I could sustain, get the endurance that I need for singing as well.
And running does help with your music.
Yes, definitely, because also if I'm working through, as I work through new ideas for music to come, ideas for new songs will come into my head too once I get into that place of no worry and just a peaceful state of running.
And so when you're running too, you might be thinking like, what's the next verse or what have you.
Right.
That's good. So tell me about your music.
Well, I actually started singing as a child, and I spent most of my life performing traditional Haida music for a children's dance group in the village of Skidegate from the time I was 15. And then I joined my husband's dance group in the early 1990s. And it's very traditional music accompanied with a hand drum or a box drum. And then from that traditional basis, I wanted to take an additional step forward to try to make the music more accessible to others who may not immediately connect with traditional Haida music. And so I worked with a producer, Bruce Riddell, and he composed classical arrangements to accompany the Haida songs that either I wrote or my husband wrote. And we put the two together and we called it New Journeys because it's a new journey of the music for all of us who are involved in that project, but also for Haida musical traditions. I really believe that there are amazing insights and lessons that can come from Haida culture, and I see the music as a way to bring out those lessons and help people connect to universal truths so that we all need that in our journey towards enlightenment, hopefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a favorite song on the Journeys?
I guess my favorites, everyone is favorite for different reasons, but there's one song that I worked on with my mom before she passed away, and I'm not a fluent Haida speaker, so she helped me all those years in correct pronunciation with Haida and telling me what the songs meant. And very early on, we composed a song called To the Ancestors, and she provided me the translation for the song after I had composed the tune. And it's a song that calls out to the ancestors and also to the generations yet to be born, and tell them that we respect them, that we want to do the correct thing, and asking for help. And so in Haida culture, we believe that it's not just you and I here today, but actually people who are yet to be born and our ancestors who are always with us. And it's just the ability to tap into those different realms for guidance and for how to take the next step forward.
Mm-hmm. When was New Journeys released?
June of 2011.
So will we expect another one coming out with your busy life as a lawyer? And
I'd like to do my next CD to be a little bit different, not with classical composition, but perhaps more of a bluesy, jazzy kind of background. Again, just to connect to a different audience again. Perhaps maybe more English, but still grounded in Haida music and Haida words. The Haida language is a linguistic isolate, and it is endangered. There are very few speakers left, so I really want to have our language continue to be used. So it's important for me to have some Haida language in the CD as well.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And now take me to running. Do you have any memorable moments of running, like any great success running stories?
Well, for me, it was getting through the marathon.
Yes.
I didn't think that I could do the marathon, but I ran it last year in Haida Gwaii. And that was a big achievement for me. I don't know that I'll do another marathon again. I heard everybody says that marathoners always say they'll never do it again, but then they do it again.
Yes.
So you never know, but at the moment I don't think I'll do that again. So that was a big thing for me. But one time when we were on holidays, I was running in Maui, and I looked out and I saw a rainbow going into the ocean. And at that moment I felt like I was connected to the ocean of Maui, but also the ocean in Haida Gwaii, and I just felt like stepping into another place and feeling that connection. It was just such a magic moment. So that moment really stands out for my running.
And so running relaxes you. What else do you do? Do you like to cook? And
I like to cook. I don't have a lot of time to make nice meals, but when I do, I like to cook for a day or two and just try to make a gourmet meal and make the desserts everything from scratch. I really enjoy doing that. I also like to weave. I weave traditional regalia, although I haven't had a lot of time to weave. And again, I'm just trying to learn now how to swim, growing up in Haida Gwaii, I didn't know how to swim. It's too cold. And also bike for the triathlon. So those are the next things that I want to focus my time on.
And so do you have a favorite pre-race meal?
If I try to be consistent, and usually I'm not really a morning person, so when I get up, I just want to have my coffee and whatever's easy. So I'll have a bowl of cashew cereal with a lot of protein in it, and that's all I'll have even before a race. But I take a lot with me because I think I have a high metabolism. So I take like bonk breakers or Vega. I take a lot of Vega gels and things like that. So.
And so, like, now tell me about your career as a lawyer.
I began working on a case that the Haida Nation was bringing to protect the old-growth forests of Haida Gwaii in 1996, and we brought a case to the Supreme Court of Canada. That's the biggest case one of the biggest cases I've worked on, and we established that before an Aboriginal nation proves title, that it isn't business as usual for companies or the government. In places like BC, where Aboriginal title still exists, but yet development keeps proceeding, and like for instance, industrial logging could sever our relationship with the land if it becomes clear-cut. So how do you approach that in the meantime, before you prove your title case in court or before you negotiate a treaty or other kinds of agreements? What do you do in that interim period? And that's what that case was about, so that because we have very strong evidence proving title to Haida Gwaii, the court said in those cases the nation must be accommodated. So since we won that case in the Supreme Court of Canada, we have achieved joint land use planning and management over all the lands in Haida Gwaii. So we're no longer worried about activities removing all the cedar trees, for instance, which are so important to Northwest Coast cultures. But we have an ability we have a say over the land now. And so our work now is focusing on the oceans around Haida Gwaii, and I've been working on an Aboriginal title case for the Haida Nation that we launched in 2002. So we're building our evidence through the historical record and building an electronic database of all the documents from the early contact period, but also all of the evidence of the elders. And for me, that's it's the most rewarding work, is spending time with the elders and hearing how their life was when they were younger and the challenge they've had to go through. So we've worked with many amazing people, even an elder who was 100 years old in Heidelberg. So it was really felt good to get that knowledge in, and it actually becomes part of the evidence in the case. And so when we realized that, we knew that we had to build a resource that wouldn't just be for the title litigation, but would be a resource for future generations to look back on and to learn more about Haida culture and how we used the land, the foods that we ate, the fish that we got, all the resources from the ocean, everything's in this database of knowledge that we're building for the case.
Terry-Lynn, you are such an inspiration. And you know, if someone wanted to start running, what would you say to them?
Don't give up, because there are so many setbacks. And every setback is probably an opportunity to become stronger. It highlights something to work on or an area that's weak, like my back, or just keep working at it and moving forward, because it's so rewarding when you get through the other end and you've completed it. And what that's also been so helpful is sometimes I'll think of, oh my gosh, like a marathon. That's it's so long, but one step at a time. So sometimes I'll come back and there'll be a huge project on my desk, and I just know from having been through the marathon and running that it's a little overwhelming, but if I start and take one step at a time, eventually I'll get there and you'll look back and the project is done. And how did that happen? How did I finish this marathon?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Participate in the annual Shaughnessy 8K run on May 25th. For more information or to register, go to www.lgrr.com. There's also the SOS Children's Village Run in Richmond on May 25th. For more information, go to www.sosbc.org/run. Dr. Doug and Diane Clement are not only instrumental in the Vancouver Sun Run, but also in the Harry Jerome International Track Classic, which will be held this year on July the 10th. Diane and Doug, you are organizers of the Harry Jerome Track Classic.
Yes, and how many years now has it been,
Well,
Doug?
the group was called the Achilles International Track and Field Society, and this was formed way back in 1964. And a group of
Yep.
volunteers who have devoted a lot of time over those years have produced many international track meets, but for the last, it will be 31 years next year for the Vancouver Sun Harry Jerome International Track Classic, which will be in Swangard on June 11th and 12th. This is our effort, if you will, to give back and try and keep the sport active and look at the positive things that come from young people being involved in sport.
And as both of us, are Olympians, I sort of kid when they say the former Olympians. I thought if once you're Olympian, you're always an Olympian.
I must say, you're getting a lot slower, though.
That's right. I'm a slower Olympian, but I'm still moving.
How about slow Olympian? Maybe
Yeah,
that
a
would
slow
be-
Olympian, slower. But, I think we all feel that we've been given such a privilege to be part of our Olympic family worldwide. And so the feeling of giving back, and that's why we just, decided to form the Achilles Society. And a lot of former Olympians and a lot of our great Canadian athletes are part of it in every role, serve on our society. So the Harry Jerome is a very important factor. A dear friend of ours, Harry, and we've cheered him on at many of his World Championship events. And it's grown. This year we had
13 countries.
Yeah.
But we had about 40 Olympians.
Oh, yeah,
from
40
around
Olympians,
the
yeah.
world. And so it has the ability to provide a situation for Canadian athletes to experience international competition at a level they need to be experienced with in order to actually represent Canada at the Olympic Games or World Championships. And that's right here in Canada. And so it's a very important thing, I think, and it's grown from the example of the Harry Jerome. The National Track League has been created.
Yeah.
So we have meets in Edmonton, Toronto,
Calgary,
Moncton, Victoria, and also in Halifax.
Yeah.
And so these other cities now are trying to do the same thing and are doing the same thing in terms of providing Canadians at home with the chance to compete against athletes from other countries.
And the other thing is that the Achilles have formed the Achilles Jerome Outreach Society, or program, I should say. And how many schools we are in now?
There are 27 schools in the inner city in which we're providing coaches to supervise the children, both in cross country and in preparation for the track and field season. And
Around
they participate
1,500,
in the Richmond Olympic Oval indoor competitions we put on, as well as the Jerome in the summer. So not only are the international athletes creating an opportunity for them, we're providing support to children of all ages.
And it's interesting to see how we have them in the relay event just before the first 2-hour, all final meet starts. And of course, then they're mixing with the Olympians, with the future Olympians, and as their role models. And for example, Dylan Armstrong, our world bronze medalist this year, he presented the cup to the winning team, and the look, the inspiration on their faces when he gathered around them, it was priceless, really. So it's interesting, and next year will be the 60th anniversary of the famous 1954 Commonwealth Games, which Doug did participate in, the famous Bannister-Landy Mile. So Doug,
The so-called Miracle Mile will be recreated, if you will, in this coming July, which will be exactly 60 years after the original. It was the first time two men who had broken the world record by running under 4 minutes in 1954 met historically at the birth, if you will, of Empire Stadium. And it was a world event. Everyone from around the world, this was the feature. And so this is important, I think, for our young people to sort of remember the history and significance. Vancouver is one of the few places where there are 3 life-size bronze statues of track and field athletes, Bannister and Landy, at the PNE. Harry Jerome in Stanley Park, and then Percy Williams at the BC Place Stadium. And so it's, I think, a good historic thing for Canada, which has been this home of great athletes over really a century. We need to keep the traditions going.
Now for your chance to win a copy of Terry Lynn's latest CD. We will randomly choose the winner. The question is, when is the Sun Run? You can send your answers to www.runwithit.ca, and good luck. Thanks for watching, and keep those emails coming.